This month we're going to be talking about the 15th verse of the 15th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, Who Am I? In this paragraph, Bhagavan is talking about the nature of God. What Bhagavan says in Nāṉ Ār and elsewhere about God may sometimes seem to some people to be somewhat inconsistent. For example, in the 7th paragraph, he started by saying, Yatātamai ulludu atmaswarupam-iṉṭṛi. What actually exists is only atmaswarupa. Atmaswarupa means, swarupa literally means own form, but it implies the real nature, atma, of oneself, so the real nature of oneself. So what actually exists is only our real nature. And then in the next sentence, he says, the world, soul, and God are karupanagal. Karupanagal means fabrication, imagination, and mental creation. Fabrications in it, like the illusory silver in a shell. So here Bhagavan is saying that God is no more real than the world or than the jiva. Jiva means the ego, the soul. And he said these three appear simultaneously and disappear simultaneously. And that it's, and then he says it's Swarupa alone is the world, Swarupa alone is I, Swarupa alone is God. That is, it's our own real nature that appears as all these things. Everything is Shiva Swarupa. All this multiplicity that we see, this world, soul, and God, all is only Shiva Swarupa. That means our own real nature, which is Shiva. But then in the 12th paragraph, he says God and Guru are in truth not different. And then in the 13th paragraph, he talks about surrender. What is surrender of oneself to God? What is giving oneself to God? He defines it as being atmanishtaparam. That's one who is completely fixed in and as oneself, giving not even the slightest room to arising of any thought other than atmachintana. Atmachintana literally means thought to oneself, but it implies self-attentiveness. Alone is giving oneself to God. And then he talks about though one places whatever amount of burden on God, that entire amount he will bear. And in the next sentence he says, since one Parameshwara Shakti means, it can mean, Ishvara can mean the ruler. So Ishvara Shakti is a ruling power, the supreme ruling power. Who is the ruler of the universe? God. So it means the power of God. So since the one supreme power of God is driving all karyas. Karyas means everything that needs or ought to be done or to happen. So everything that is happening by the power of God. And he says, instead of yielding to it, why should we be perpetually thinking it's necessary to do this, it's necessary to do that? Then he gives the analogy of a passenger traveling on a train. When we're traveling on the train, we know the train is carrying all the burden. Why shouldn't we just put our luggage aside and travel happily instead of carrying our luggage on our head? If we carry our luggage on our head, we're suffering unnecessarily. So he's recommending complete surrender of ourselves to God. So for some people, this may seem to be a contradiction. In one place, he says God is just a mental fabrication. In another place, he says we should completely surrender ourselves to God. In this 15th paragraph, he bridges over this seeming contradiction. The reason for this contradiction is that what God actually is our own real nature. God and ourself are not two separate things. But when we rise as ego, we see God as another, and we see the world. So in that sense, God, world, and soul are just fabrications. That is, God as something other than ourselves is just a fabrication. But what God actually is our real nature. But then so many actions, we're told that we should surrender to God. Bhagavan says all karyas, all activities are happening by the power of God, supreme power of God. So in this paragraph, he's explaining this. But actually, though in one view we can say God is doing all these activities, creating the world, he's sustaining the world, he's destroying the world, all these activities are being done by God. That's the usual view of people. They think God is primarily God. They take God as the creator and also one who sustains the world, one who fulfills our prayers, all these things. Bhagavan explains how God seems to do all these things. And another thing Bhagavan says, it is God who ordains the fruits of our karmas. Elsewhere Bhagavan says that. So if God is just a mental fabrication, how is he ordaining the fruits of our karmas? So many questions could be raised about the nature of God. All these are very nicely answered by Bhagavan in this 15th paragraph. So in this 15th paragraph, 2/3 of the paragraph is one long sentence, and then it's followed by 3 shorter sentences. So the long sentence is quite a complex sentence, but we can break it down into parts. The first half, or a little bit more than half, Bhagavan is giving several analogies to illustrate what the main point that he says in the main part of the sentence. So the analogies are, he starts by saying, icchā-saṅkalpa-yatnam-iṉṭṛi, y-eṛunda, ādittaṉ, saṉṉidhi-māttirattil, kānta-k-kal, kakkuvadum, tāmarai malarvadum, nāṉ ulahōr tattaṅ kāriyaṅgaḷil, y-aḍaṅguvadum. That means, just like in the mere presence of the sun, which rose without icchā, icchā means wish, desire, or liking, saṅkalpa means volition, or yatna means effort or exertion. So the sun rises without any desire, without any saṅkalpa, without any wish, and without any effort. But in its mere presence, a sunstone, the word Bhagavan uses in Tamil is kānta-k-kal. Kānta has various meanings. Kānta means what attracts or what is beloved, but it's also a word that means magnet. And often in Tamil, kānta-k-kal means a magnet. But that's not the sense in which he's using here. Here he's referring to what is called what in Sanskrit is called Surya-kanta, and in Tamil is called Surya-kanta-kal sometimes. Surya-kanta is a particular gem, often translated in English as sunstone. This gem is supposed to be cool to touch, but to have fire inside. So as soon as it's exposed to the sun, it emits fire, or emits heat. That is the belief about this stone. But in some translations, it's being interpreted as a magnifying lens. But in the presence of the sun, a magnifying lens emits fire. If you hold a magnifying lens under the sun and focus the light on a particular thing, it can ignite fire. I don't think that is actually what Bhagavan meant by kānta-k-kal here. I think he's referring to that gemstone, Surya-kanta, that is supposed to emit fire when it's exposed to the sun. But anyway, this is all analogy. So the particular meaning of the detail doesn't matter so much. Bhagavan is just illustrating so many things happen in the mere presence of the sun. So first he talks about this sunstone emitting fire, then a lotus blossoming, water evaporating, and people of the world commencing or becoming engaged in their respective karyas, activities, doing those karyas and ceasing. So all these things that are happening, they're happening in the mere presence of the sun. That's the point of this analogy. The sun isn't doing anything. The sun rises without any desire, without any saṅkalpa, without any effort. But in its mere presence, all these things happen on earth. We could add so many other things. The trees blossom, photosynthesis takes place, energy is produced, oxygen is absorbed, CO2 is absorbed, oxygen is emitted, and the food from those produced by, the nourishment produced by those plants then feeds so many animals, and all these things. So many things are happening on earth just by the presence of the sun, in the presence of the sun, without the sun actually doing anything. It's just there. That is the purpose of this analogy. And then he gives another analogy. Kāntattiṉ mun usi cēṣṭippadum. That means in front of a magnet, a needle moving. That is, the magnet isn't doing anything, but in its mere presence, needles move. So what Bhagavan is, the purpose of this analogy of the sun and of the magnet is that in their mere presence, things happen without actually, the sun doesn't do anything to make all these things happen on earth. It just is there. It's just present. And because of its presence, all these things happen. Likewise, a magnet doesn't do anything, but because of its mere presence, the needle moves. So up to here, this is the two analogies that Bhagavan gives. Things happening in the presence of the sun and needles moving in the presence of a magnet. Then the next word is pōla. Pōla means, in this context, just like. So that applies to both of these analogies. And then we come to the main part of the sentence, what these analogies are illustrating. This remainder of the sentence consists of a long relative clause and then a shorter main clause. The relative clause is qualifying jivagal. Jivagal means souls, individuals, people. That is egos or individuals. And what Bhagavan says about individuals, but, well, he first says the whole clause is saṅkalpa-rahitar-āy-irukkum, saṉṉidhāṉa-viśēṣa-māttirattāl, nadakum, muttoril, aladu pancha-kritiyan gulul uppata, gulaku uppata jivagal. That is, souls who are subject to or ensnared in muttoril. Muttoril is a Tamil term meaning the three works or three actions, the three tasks. This is referring to the three primary tasks of God: creation, sustenance, and destruction. So that's what muttoril refers to. Alladu pancha-kritiyangaḻ. Pancha-kritiyangaḻ is a Sanskrit term meaning 5 actions. Those 5 actions are these same 3 actions: creation, sustenance, dissolution, concealment, and grace. Concealment means that's explained in different ways. In some contexts, concealment can mean the fact that though we've done so many karmas in past lives and are now experiencing the fruit of karmas that we experienced in past lives, we don't know actually what those karmas are. We don't generally remember anything about previous lives. That's one meaning of concealment in this context. It can also mean God is keeping us in this state of delusion, concealing our real nature from us. Though actually, according to Bhagavan, we can't blame God for it's our ignorance. We are the ones why we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are, because we don't look at ourselves, we don't attend to ourselves, we look outwards. Anyway, that concealment of our real nature is often attributed to God. And the other one is grace. Grace is what is the opposite of concealment. Whereas concealment keeps us in bondage, Grace is what frees us. And grace is the power that enables us to know what we actually are. Other people may explain this concealment and grace in other ways, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, these are just traditional beliefs, but God has these 3 or 5 functions: creation, sustenance, dissolution, and also concealment and grace. So jivas are utpatta. Utpatta means it can mean subject to it, or it can mean ensnared in. If an animal is caught in a trap, that is, if it's caught in a snare, that word uppatta would mean that. So it's like a captured animal. We are caught in this, and caught in and therefore subject to these divine activities. But how these divine activities happen, this is the important point in this whole paragraph, and that is what is the cause that is contained in the words saṅkalpa-rahitar-āy-irukkum, saṉṇidhāṉa-viśēṣa-māttirattāl. Saṅkalpa-rahitar-āy-irukkum means that's a relative clause, meaning who is saṅkalpa-rahitar. Saṅkalpa-rahitar means one who is devoid of any volition or intention. Isan means God. So God who is devoid of any intention or any volition. These things, how these things are happening? Isan saṉṇidhāṉa-viśēṣa-māttirattāl. Saṇṇidhāna means presence. Viśēṣa means what is special, and matram means merely, or what only. By the mere, so isan saṉṇidhāṉa-viśēṣa-māttirattāl means which happen by the special nature of the presence of God. That happens is nadakam. Sorry, nadakam is the main verb of this relative clause. So all these 5 divine functions, creation, sustenance, and dissolution, how these happen? They happen by the mere presence of God. Just as in the mere presence of the sun, all these, the sunstone emits fire, the lotus blossoms, water evaporates, and people engage in all their activities. And just like in the mere presence of the magnet, a needle moves, so also in the mere presence of God, all these divine functions happen. This is very, very significant, because what Bhagavan is saying here is God is not a doer. Or we could say it in another way, God is doing without doing. The magnet isn't doing anything when it makes a needle move, but by making the needle move, it is doing without doing. That's how it's sometimes expressed. So what Bhagavan is expressing here is that God is not actually doing anything. And then the main clause which ends the sentence is the jivas who are subject to these 5 divine activities which happen by the mere presence of God. Tattaṅ karma-anusaram cēṣṭippadum ādittaṉ. That means the jivas, the souls, cēṣṭippadum means they move or engage in activity, or exert themselves. ādittaṉ means they subside. So souls do all their karma. They engage in activity and they cease activity according to their karma anusaram, means in accordance with their karmas. In accordance with their tattaṅ. Tattaṅ means their respective karmas. Tattaṅ literally means their karmas. It implies their respective karmas. this doesn't mean only our prarabdha karma or destiny. It also implies our karma vasanas. Our karma vasanas are our inclinations or desires to think, speak, and act in particular ways. So I added here to explain this this clause, jivas engage in activity and cease being active in accordance with their respective karmas. And I explained that in accordance not only with their prarabdha karma or destiny, which impels them to do whatever actions are necessary in order for them to experience all the pleasant and unpleasant things that they are destined to experience, but also with their karma vasanas, their inclinations or desires to think, speak, and act in particular ways, which impel them to make efforts to experience pleasant things and to avoid experiencing unpleasant things. That is, the activities we do are driven by two things. One is they're driven by our destiny. If it's our destiny, say, to have an accident, we will make a decision and do something that will cause that accident. Doing that action that causes the accident or that exposes us to that accident is a necessary part of our destiny. So we'll be made to do that. But we also have many likes and dislikes. It may not be our destiny to, it may not be our destiny to be rich, but we may have great desire to be rich, and we may be always trying to, in some way or other, to find ways of being rich. So we're free to make those efforts, but if it's not in our destiny, it's not going to happen. So we're free to want things that are not in our destiny, or to want to avoid things that are in our destiny. And we're also free to try to achieve those things which we want to achieve and to avoid those things we want to avoid. We won't actually change anything, but we have that freedom. And it is the use of our will to do, to like or dislike things, and to desire things, to fear things, to avoid things, all these things, all our efforts to achieve what we want to achieve and to avoid what we want to avoid, that is all. That is what creates the agamya, the fruit of which have become prarabdha in a later life. So when Bhagavan talks about karma anusaram here, it's actually got a very deep meaning. It's not just referring to our acting according to destiny, as some people assume. It's the whole. There would be no destiny, there would be no prarabdha if we hadn't done agamya. And we do agamya because of our will. And our will consists of our vasanas, our inclinations or desires. Karma vasanas are the inclinations or desires to think, speak, and act in particular ways. Why do we want to speak? Why do we have desire to think, act, and speak? Think, speak, and act in particular ways? Because we want to achieve certain things. If I want to, if I have a liking for chocolate and I want to eat chocolate, that liking to eat chocolate is a Vishaya vasana. It's a liking for a particular Vishaya, a phenomena, a particular experience. The taste of chocolate is a Vishaya. So my Vishaya vasana gives me that liking for chocolate, but in order to fulfill that liking, I will then do action. So for every Vishaya vasana, there's a corresponding karma vasana. Karma vasana, the inclination to act in particular ways, is the heart of every karma vasana is a Vishaya vasana. Because we act only in order to either achieve certain experiences or to avoid certain experiences. So all that is implied in that one word, anusaram. Anusaram means following or going after karma. But it doesn't only mean the prarabdha karma, it also means the karma vasanas which impel us to do agamya. So the main point of this sentence is that all the actions that are usually attributed to God, the creation, sustenance, and dissolution, they all happen not by God actually doing anything, but by the mere special nature of the presence of God. That's the main point here, because what Bhagavan is emphasizing in this paragraph is that God doesn't actually do anything. In his mere presence, everything happens. Sometimes, among the devotees of Bhagavan, people sometimes experience what they took to be miracles, but they attributed to Bhagavan. And sometimes when Bhagavan was asked about this, how, Bhagavan, you deny that you do anything, but when I prayed to you, I was facing this difficulty, and I prayed to you and such a thing happened. So I think this is a miracle. Bhagavan said, I had nothing to do with this. This is all automatic divine activity. I don't know whether he said the words automatic divine activity in English, or whether it was some equivalent term that he used in Tamil. But generally Bhagavan spoke only in Tamil. Occasionally he would use English. He would express himself in English, very short sentences. So, but anyway, it's been recorded in some book somewhere, but Bhagavan said it's a divine automatic activity. That is what Bhagavan is explaining here. God doesn't actually do anything, but by his mere being, by his mere presence, all these things happen. So that's the main point of this sentence. But Bhagavan gives these analogies, and as a result of this, these 5 divine activities which happen by the mere presence of God, jivas who are subject to these, or ensnared in these, the effects of these 5 activities, they go about their own actions according to their respective karmas. That's the point of this. That's the point of the first sentence. Then in the second sentence, in the first sentence, one small clause he re-emphasizes here. That is when he's talking about God, in whose mere presence all these things happen. He describes God as saṅkalpa-rahitar-āy-irukkum. That means God who is saṅkalpa-rahita. Saṅkalpa-rahita means one who is devoid of any volition or intention, any saṅkalpa. The opposite of rahita is sahita, one who has. Sahita means a person who is connected with or possesses. So saṅkalpa-sahita means a person who possesses, or one who possesses volition or intention, one who has saṅkalpa. But so to emphasize what he said in that small clause in the first sentence, Bhagavan repeats the same idea, but instead of saying he is devoid of saṅkalpa, here he says he's not one who has saṅkalpa. Andri ava saṅkalpa-sahitar-āy Allah. Nevertheless, he, God, is not saṅkalpa-sahita, one who is connected with or possesses any volition or intention. Why Bhagavan repeats it here? Because this is the main point. God doesn't have any desire of his own. God isn't actually doing anything. It's all these things that are happening by his mere presence. The desire that gives rise to all these is the desire of the jiva. According to Bhagavan, when ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. And ego comes into existence along with all its desires. And because of its desires, its vasanas, it projects all these phenomena. So ultimately, it's ego's desire that is driving all these things, but everything happens by the mere presence of God. Why does everything happen by the mere presence of God? What is God? God is our own real nature. So our real nature is just pure awareness. So it's only by the mere presence of that pure awareness that all these things seem to happen in our view, in the view of ourselves as this jiva or ego. Then in the next sentence, he again a very short sentence, oru karumam-um abare y-oṭṭādu. That means even one karma does not adhere to him. Y-oṭṭādu means it doesn't stick or doesn't adhere to him. It implies he is not bound or in any way affected by any karma or action whatsoever. So all actions are happening in his mere presence without affecting him or binding him in any way, because he is not the doer of them. And even in whose view do all actions happen? only in the view of jiva. So though Bhagavan said in the, a couple of paragraphs earlier, in the 13th paragraph, but the God, the Parameshwara Shakti, the supreme power of God or supreme ruling power, is driving all karyas. How is it driving all karyas? Not by any action, but by its mere presence. That's what Bhagavan clarifies here. Then again he ends with another sentence which gives an analogy for this sentence. But God doesn't. But no action affects God. He says, "Adu lōka-karumaṅgaḻ y-oṭṭādadum, catur-bhūtaṅgaḻiṉ viyāpakam-āṉa viyāpakam-āṉa y-oṭṭādadum pōlam." That means this is that is like the world actions. Lōka-karumaṅgaḻ literally means the world actions. It implies all the actions happening on earth. Everything that happens, the lotus blossoming, the sunstone emitting fire, water evaporating, people going about their activities, all these do not in any way affect God, the sun, in whose mere presence they happen. So they don't adhere to or affect the sun. And that's one analogy. The other analogy is that just like the guna-gunangal means the qualities and the defects of the other four elements, meaning earth, water, air, and fire, not adhering to the all-pervading space. Whether the space is filled with the earth, or with water, or with air, or with fire, or with nothing, the space remains as it is. It's not touched by any of these things. So in the same way, God, though all activities happen by the mere presence of God, none of these stick to him. None of these affect him in any way. So the whole of this paragraph, Bhagavan is emphasizing that God is not actually the doer. The nature, God, as I said, is our real nature. God is Atma-swarupa. But and what is Atma-swarupa? Nothing but pure awareness. So in the mere presence of pure awareness, all these things happen, but they don't touch the pure awareness at all. In the view of God, there is no world, there is no jiva, nothing is happening. It's all in the view of the jiva, the ego, but all these actions, all these happenings are occurring. And but in the view of God, God, as I say, is our own real nature, and in his view, nothing is other than him. So all that appears in our view is not actually other than God. So everything is God, and God is just pure awareness, the nature of which is not doing anything but just being. So that's what Bhagavan emphasizes in this paragraph. So even though God is said to be creator, destroyer, sustainer, and destroyer of the world, even though God is said to be veiling us with ajnana or avidya, and then removing that avidya by his grace, even though God is said to be ordaining the fruits of our karmas in order to slowly, gradually mature us and lead us on to liberation, though all these things are attributed to God, how God does all these things? Not by doing anything, but just by being as he is. So, though Bhagavan employs the concept of God, he's very, very much emphasizing that God is nothing but, actually God is Brahman. Brahman is another name for our real nature. That is the one infinite whole, the one absolute reality, that the basic Satchidananda. That Satchidananda is our real nature, and it is mere presence all these things happen. And why these things happen? Elsewhere Bhagavan explains they all happen or seem to happen only in the view of the ego. So it's only because we rise as ego, but we experience all these things, all these happenings, these actions, and everything. None of these would happen but for the mere presence of pure awareness, which is our real nature. So that is the meaning and import of this paragraph. So if anyone would like to ask any questions about this, or about any other aspect of Bhagavan's teachings.
Questions, or does everybody want to ponder on this for a few minutes?
Yes, I've got a question.
Do you want to comment?
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
When you talk about destiny, or rather Bhagavan talks about destiny, it sounds a bit hopeless, helpless, and that seems on the face of it depressing. But I'm also reminded of, and this doesn't necessarily contradict anything that Bhagavan's saying, but that certainly within the Hindu tradition, and I would say probably within the Christian tradition, all the traditions, there is the concept of remedial measures. So you're warned of a fate, and because you sincerely pray or do charities or whatever, or surrender, that fate still happens, but it's much, much less bad. I don't know that necessarily contradicts anything you're saying, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are just the thoughts that came to mind.
Yeah. Well, all these beliefs are there, but the thing is, how can we ever know? I mean, for example, it is said, but if you pray, you may have to experience what you're destined to experience, but it'll be less bad or something like that. People say all sorts of things, but how can we know that anything has been changed? Just because, for example, because we prayed, we know the outcome, but whether that outcome would have been any different if we hadn't prayed, that we don't know. But you say it all sounds very helpless. We are helpless. If we want to change our life, if we want our life to be other than what we are destined to experience, we're helpless. We can't change it because it's already been, all that we have to experience in this life has already been destined. We cannot experience anything that is not destined for us to experience, and we cannot avoid experiencing whatever is destined for us to experience. But why should we want to? So long as we want to change our destiny, we're still concerned with our life as an individual, as a person. But who is it? Who is the I who says, I am this person, I am experiencing this, I am experiencing that, I want to experience this, I'm not able to experience it, I tried and I wasn't able to experience it. Who is this I? That's what we should be concerned about. If we are concerned about knowing our real nature, in order to know our real nature, we have to surrender this ego. And in order to surrender this ego, we have to investigate ourselves. That should be our concern if we are following the spiritual path. For people who have all sorts of desires and aspirations in the world, who hope to achieve things, being told that everything is according to destiny may be rather depressing, and rather they may not want to believe it. That's why many people don't believe that. But actually, if we want to surrender ourselves, what Bhagavan has taught us, the karma theory, is actually a great help to us in the path of surrender. Because so long as we think things happen because of our efforts, we feel responsibility. Not only we have catur-bhūtaṅgaḻ, means the sense of doership. Not only along with catur-bhūtaṅgaḻ comes kartavya-buddhi. Kartavya-buddhi means the sense of obligation, of duty. We feel, I've got a family, I have to feed them, I have to do this, I have to do that. According to Bhagavan, that's carrying the burden on our head. what Bhagavan asks us to do, he said the train is carrying the burden. All that is to happen will happen. What you are destined to experience, what you're destined to do, you'll be made to do. Why should you want anything you do extra over and above what you're destined to do is not going to change anything. So if you're destined to raise a family of 6 children and to provide for all their needs and everything, you're made to do that whether you want it or not, because it's in your destiny. If it's not in your destiny, it's not going to happen. So actually, Bhagavan says, why this paragraph should be read in conjunction with the 13th paragraph, where Bhagavan basically is saying, why should we think we have to act in this way or that way? Just leave the whole burden to God. God is already making all these things happen. Whatever is meant to happen is going to happen. So we actually relieved of a great, we need not feel we have a responsibility to do this or that, because what we have responsibility to do will be made to do. So we need not concern ourselves. So long as we feel I have to do this, that is carrying our luggage on our head. But Bhagavan said, you're traveling on a train. The train is carrying all the burden. Whether you carry it on your head or put it on the seat beside you, your luggage and you are going to reach the destination together. So why to carry it on your head? Bhagavan said, why to suffer by carrying it on your head instead of putting it aside and sukhamai, just merely being happy, being satisfied, having a comfortable journey. So actually this whole karma theory is actually, rather than, for someone who has a lot of worldly desires, it may appear rather hopeless and rather depressing. But if we want to surrender ourselves, this relieves us of so much responsibility. You don't have responsibility for anything. Leave the whole burden to God. However much burden you place on God, he will bear all of it, Bhagavan says. So for anyone on the path of surrender, this karma theory is a great, great aid and solace. We are not actually responsible for anything. Our only responsibility, leave the whole burden to God. How to leave the whole burden to God? So long as we rise as ego, we'll be doing things by our own volition. In order to surrender our will to God, we have to surrender ourselves to God. We have to cease rising as ego. How to cease rising as ego? By constantly attending to ourselves. That is what Bhagavan means in the first sentence of that 13th paragraph. Remaining as Atmanishta Paran, giving not even the slightest room to the rising of any thought other than Atmachintana, that self-attentiveness, is giving oneself to God. So all these teachings, when we think about them, they all tie together. They all have a place. There's a reason why Bhagavan says all these things. And not only Bhagavan says all these things will happen as they're meant to happen, so we don't have to take any doership. Not even God has doership for all these things, is what he's saying in this paragraph. God is just being as he is, as pure awareness. And his mere presence, all these things happen. So if we want to surrender ourselves to God, we also have to give up this idea that we have to do anything. The nature of God is just being. If we want to surrender ourselves to God, we have to remain in that state of just being. How to remain in the state of just being? By not rising as ego. How to avoid rising as ego? By attending only to ourselves and not to anything else. So Bhagavan's teachings are all self-surrender and self-inquiry are not two different paths. They're just two ways of expressing the same thing. Actually, they're one and the same. And the aim of it all, not rising as ego, because by rising as ego, we bring all these problems into existence. So let our destiny be a good destiny, a bad destiny. Who says a certain destiny is good, a certain destiny is bad? We generally think, oh, if you've got plenty of material wealth, and if you've got education and you've got favorable friends and relatives and everything, you've got a good prarabdha. But if you happen to be born as an orphan living on the streets in some poor country, and you have to eke out a livelihood all your life. You may be suffering in so many ways. That's a bad prarabdha. But this is all judgments of our mind, our own value judgments. We consider one state to be favorable, one state to be unfavorable. But for our spiritual development, whatever we are given to experience is what is most favorable for our spiritual development. So let us not concern ourselves with that. The reason Bhagavan teaches us about destiny is to teach us that we need not concern ourselves with destiny. We need not concern ourselves with karma. Our concern is not with doing, but with being. That's the whole purpose of this karma theory, to make us understand we shouldn't worry about karma at all. We shouldn't take responsibility for karma. We should take responsibility for just being. Because being is our real nature. Doing is not our real nature. Because who is God? God is our real nature. And Bhagavan is emphasizing here, God is not in any way touched by any karma. He's not a doer. He's just a beer. That is our real nature. Does that answer your question?
I think it's a very good answer. I wish I could always be in that state of being. It's just the problem for me. The mind keeps rising up. It keeps saying all this and keeps saying you've got to do stuff. It keeps doing that the whole time.
We're all in the same boat. This morning I received an email from a friend who's visiting Tiruvannamalai, and he says he becomes so aware when he visits Tiruvannamalai, though he has so much love for Bhagavan, he still has so much love for the world. I said, you're describing the state of all of us. We're all in the same state. Merging in Bhagavan is the easiest of all things, because Bhagavan is our real nature. The problem is, we're not yet ready to let go of the world. We're not yet ready to let go of other things. So it seems to be very difficult to achieve moksha or self-realization, all these things. Why it seems difficult? Because we're not yet ready to let go. You know, there's God or Bhagavan is infinite happiness, infinite and eternal happiness. That is ours just for the asking. Bhagavan is ready to give it to us here and now. In fact, Bhagavan cannot give it to us because it's already ours. We are already that. Bhagavan just shows us that we are that. But why we don't see ourselves as that? Because we're not yet ready to let go of other things. So every spiritual aspirant has love for God or Bhagavan or self or whatever you want to call it, Atma-swarupa or whatever. Every spiritual aspirant has love for that, but still has love for the world. That's what being a spiritual aspirant is all about. Giving up our love for the world and increasing our love for just being as we really are. Being as we really are is the real nature of Bhagavan and our real nature. So if we want to merge in Bhagavan, if we want to be one with Bhagavan, we have to be ready to give up everything else, which is actually a very, very small price to pay for infinite happiness. Bhagavan said, surrender is a very, very, very good bargain. It's like giving a quarter paisa and getting all the wealth in the world in return. But because we are so attached to this quarter paisa, our little life in this world as Michael or whoever, we're not ready to let go of these things. So we are separated. The reason we are not experiencing that infinite happiness, which is what we actually are, is because we're simply we're not yet willing to let go of other things. So how do we let go of how do we become willing to let go of other things? By trying to follow Bhagavan's path of self-surrender and self-investigation. Bhagavan has already sown that seed of love for him in our heart. So Bhagavan is like a gardener, like a very careful and watchful gardener. If he plants a seed, he will take care of it, he will nurture it, let it grow up. And so no seed that is planted by Bhagavan will go in vain. So in our heart, he's sown that seed of liking for him. He will nurture it. All we have to do is leave the burden to him. He will carry the whole burden for us. We don't have, if we surrender ourselves, no sadhana is necessary. Sadhana seems to be necessary only because we are not yet willing to surrender ourselves. So to make ourselves willing to surrender ourselves, all sadhana is necessary. One day even the sadhana has to drop off. That is the real sadhana. So self-surrender is the ultimate sadhana. And self-surrender is achieved by how? By attending only to ourselves. So self-surrender and self-investigation are one and the same thing, ultimately.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Michael.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, Michael,
Hello.
I feel very burden is lifted. I feel free. I feel responsibility.
That is the beauty of Bhagavan's teachings.
So I let things happen.
Yeah.
My thoughts become less.
Yes, yes.
And you carry.
Not only your thoughts become less, you become less.
Sometimes I have desires. I become less. I have desires, but I don't fight them. I just let it happen. But sometimes I feel after I've spent the time on that desire, I feel guilty that I've, in a way, not fought it. I've just surrendered to the desire. In the sense of like I like to read up about something, so I just do it.
When a small child is learning to walk, it will fall so many times. It shouldn't feel guilty about every time it falls. Likewise, on this spiritual path, we do constantly get swept away by our desires. We shouldn't feel guilty about that. What does a child do when it falls down? It stands up again and toddles on until finally it learns how to walk steadily. So it's the same in the spiritual path. Falling is part of learning to follow the spiritual path. So desires are there. We will be swept away by our desires so many times, but slowly, 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 they will lose their hold on us if we are truly trying to follow Bhagavan's path. So let's not worry about the times we fail. Let's continue trying to succeed.
So the analogy of eating chocolate, if you like eating chocolate and you have thoughts of eating chocolate and you continue to eat chocolate, it's okay, or naturally will.
So long as you dwell on the thought of chocolate, that desire for chocolate will get stronger and stronger. But you also have to reflect, is this chocolate really satisfying me? No, we know there's so many things that we derive pleasure from in this world. But do we derive satisfaction from any of these things? Very, very fleeting satisfaction. And then we return to our old state of dissatisfaction. All desire is born of dissatisfaction. So we have to learn to be satisfied with things as they are. The more we try to follow this path of self-investigation and self-surrender, the weaker our desires will become, the more satisfied we will be. And ultimately our goal is eternal, infinite satisfaction. Paramasukha. That's infinite satisfaction. That's our real nature. We seem to be dissatisfied because we've risen as ego and separated ourselves from our real nature, which is infinite satisfaction, infinite happiness. So rather than fighting the desires, forget about the desires. Learn to be satisfied with if you learn to be satisfied, desires will wither away. Because it's our dissatisfaction that feeds the desires. The desires are born in dissatisfaction and they flourish in dissatisfaction. Learn to be satisfied and the desires will wither away. How can we learn to be satisfied? By surrendering ourselves. How can we surrender ourselves? By attending to ourselves.
Breaking up.
So it's all perfectly well
Michael, we
together.
didn't hear.
Sorry, was that interrupted? Was there a breakage?
Yeah, there was breakage about
Okay.
how can we be satisfied.
Okay. What I was saying is, in order to weaken our desires, we have to learn to be satisfied. In order to learn to be satisfied, we have to surrender ourselves. And in order to surrender ourselves, we have to attend to ourselves. So the more we try to follow Bhagavan's path, the more satisfied we will be. The more our dissatisfaction will dissolve. And the more satisfied we are, the easier surrender becomes. And the easier surrender is, the easier it is to turn within. What prevents us turning within to attend only to ourselves is our attachment to other things, our desire to attend to other things. The more we're willing to let go of other things, the easier it will be to turn within. That's why Bhagavan says, don't carry your burden on your head. Leave it aside on the train. Travel happily. So all the sadhana Bhagavan has asked us to do is to be happy.
Thank you.
But happiness won't be achieved from our chocolate, because chocolate will always breed more desire and more desire. So the happiness is to be found within, not outside.
Michael,
By
would you
letting
like to,
go, we find real happiness.
Michael, would you like to take one more question before we
Yes,
take a
yes,
break?
certainly.
So, surrender must mean a total acceptance of prevailing conditions, irrespective of whether they're good or bad.
Well, good or bad is our judgment. It's all good, accepting even the seemingly bad as good. Then only we'll be really ready to accept it. So long as we judge it as bad, it's very difficult to accept what is bad. Change our judgment. If we understand that whatever happens is happening by Bhagavan's will for our good. See, here I bring in Bhagavan's will, and Bhagavan says he has no will in this paragraph. But from our point of view, Bhagavan seems to have a will, because he has ordained our actions by his mere being. So all that we experience in our life, we can take as Bhagavan's will. And why all these things are given to us? For our own good, for our own spiritual good. So everything is good. There's a saying in Tamil, Ellam Nammaikai, everything is for good. Everything is only for good.
So basically, the badly or the bug in the concept is judgment.
It's judgment. It's our judgment. What we like is good. What we dislike is bad.
So if you don't judge, you're there.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That is why Bhagavan says in a later paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, Bhagavan says, likes and dislikes are both to be disliked. It's because we judge one thing as good and another thing as bad. We like the good things, we dislike the bad things. Those likes and dislikes are the problems. If we accept everything, if we give up all our likes and dislikes and accept whatever happens as the sweet will of Bhagavan, then all is good.
So irrespective of everything, just acceptance.
Yes.
There.
Because only when there's acceptance will we be ready to let go of everything. Because what makes us hold on to all these things is our desires and attachments. Once we accept everything, then it's very easy just to turn up. Once you accept things the way they are, we have no desire to change anything. So we turn within and subside back within. We take the luggage off our head, put it on the train, travel happily. How do we travel happily? By turning our attention within, being unmindful of the world.
And that's got to
What
be
in
right.
Christian mysticism is called holy indifference. In Sanskrit, it's called vairagya, freedom of concern, freedom of any interest in these external things.
But that's got to be a permanent state of being.
Yes,
It's no good
and
being-
And it is not possible to achieve that state of being so long as we rise as ego. So the root of all this, the root of the whole problem, who has desire, who has attachment? It is I as ego. Do we have any desires or attachments when we're asleep? No. So it's desire and attachment it's ego that has desire and attachment. In order to give up ego, we first have to give up our desire and attachment, at least to a considerable extent. But we cannot give up our desire and attachment entirely without giving up its root, that is ego.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Surrender is the ultimate spiritual path. People think, oh, surrender is easy. You just say, I surrender, and then you can go and do whatever you want. So long as you want to do anything, you haven't surrendered. Giving up all our wants, and not only giving up the wants, giving up the wanter. The wanter is the ego.
It's just the ego.
Yeah.
Yeah. More difficult to do than Nīti-ār, I think. Actually.
Well, Bhagavan says it's actually very, very easy, because in order to give up the wanter, you have to just look and try and find the wanter. Who is it who has all this desire and attachment? Look for it and it disappears. Because it seems to exist only so long as we're looking outside.
Okay, right.
Sorry, it's breaking up a bit. I'm not hearing you.
It's Mary. She's very satisfied with her answer.
Thank you, Michael.
Anyone else?
Hi, Michael. I'm just thinking that these teachings are extremely advanced, aren't they? For example, if I'm just sitting around and thinking, well, you know, I'm meditating now and I don't really want to make any effort. I just want to be, I mean, I ought to be here by 1 o'clock, but if I just want to be, you know, it's a bit of an effort to get on the underground to come here. But I've got to make myself come here. For example, another thing, you know, if I have to pay my income tax, I might not feel like paying my income tax and doing all those forms. I just want to be that I can just, you know, say to myself, well, I leave it to God, but I mean, God's not going to fill out my income tax form. And then what happens, you know, then I get
God, if you leave it to God, God will fill out your income tax form.
Sorry.
According to Bhagavan, Bhagavan says, however much burden you place on God, he will bear all of it. So if you leave the filling of your income tax form to God, he will fill it for you. But he will use your body, speech, and mind to do that. The trouble is, we have the doership. We think I am filling the income tax form. That sense of doership is the problem. And the sense of doership is because we take this body and mind as ourself. Leave the body and mind to God. The body and mind is the luggage we're carrying on our head. Bhagavan says, leave it aside on the train. The train will carry it. So whatever actions this body and mind have to do.
Bhagavan was living. Sorry.
Sorry, I missed that. The connection.
No, I've just been to Tiruvamala myself, and my God, I mean, it's changed so much, and there are all these people uttering all this stuff, and I don't know, I'm finding it quite hard. I think, he lived in a different time, and we're living in a different time now, and I don't know, I just don't know how, I think I'm just struggling, that's all.
We're all struggling. Because why we're struggling? Because we're not yet willing to let go.
Well, no, because there's too much fear. There's too much fear. I mean,
and fear arises from what? Fear arises from desire. If you had no desire, there would be no fear. So desire is the problem. But who has desire?
Those are my fears, to be honest. Those are my fears.
Yeah.
Practical fears.
Yes. Because we've got practical desires, we have practical fears. Whatever we have desire for, we fear the opposite.
Yes, but is that really a desire? Just not, is that really a desire to not, want to be in prison? I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just.
We all desire a comfortable life for ourselves, and because we take ourselves to be this body and mind, we are concerned about the comforts of this body. But according to Bhagavan, all these things are already decided. So if you're going to be homeless, you cannot avoid being homeless. If you're not going to be homeless, you cannot, even if you go and take your sleeping bag out onto the street tonight, someone will come and pick you up and take you to a nice warm place to sleep. So all these things everything happens according to destiny. If we trust what Bhagavan says, if we trust that he is carrying all the burden for us, we are free of that. There's nothing for us to desire, there's nothing for us to fear. But we have to be, it's easy to say it in words, but in order to, anyone can surrender in words. I can say, I surrender. That's very, very easiest sentence to say. But to actually surrender, we have to let go. And that in order to let go, we have to be willing to let go. And none of us are yet willing to let go entirely. So the whole of the spiritual path is cultivating that willingness to let go.
I think Marianne's asking that what do we have to let go of?
What do we have to let go of? Everything, except yourself. Because letting go is not a big deal. We think it's a very big deal to let go. But how can we let go of everything when we go to sleep at night?
I don't. I suffer from insomnia.
But how? But in spite.
I really don't sleep. I don't sleep. What can I do? It's supposed to be the easiest thing in the world to just sleep, but I don't sleep. So what answer do you have for that?
You may seem to spend much of a night sleepless, but in between those sleepless periods, there will be periods of sleep. We couldn't live without sleep. Nobody can go for more than a certain amount of time without sleep. So sleep is something that there's a time when we're all, for each of us, spend some time in sleep. So at that time we are asleep, we have let go. Because of our unwillingness to let go, sometimes we may seem to suffer from insomnia.
I think perhaps what Marianne is asking is that are there any small steps in letting go?
Exactly.
Every time we try to turn our attention within is one small step in the right direction. every time we reflect to ourselves, does any of this really matter? Let it be. Whatever will be, will be. Why should we concern ourselves with all these things? You say the world has changed so much. Let it be.
Sorry?
You say, but things have changed so much in our lifetime. Things have changed so much. Let it be. Things change as they're meant to change. Why should we concern ourselves with it? So it's learning to accept things just as they are, and being unconcerned by them.
Well, it's easier said than done.
It is easier said than done, absolutely, absolutely. But there's nothing so worthwhile as letting go, learning to let go. So none of us have. If we had let go, we wouldn't be here. The fact that we're all here and talking means we haven't yet let go. So but we're all on that path. We're all making progress towards that. We're all gradually cultivating the willingness to let go. That's what spiritual practice is all about, ultimately.
Would a small step in letting go of be simply letting go of the thoughts? I mean, not thinking too much about it.
Not only not thinking too much, not being too much concerned about anything. Why we think so much? Because we're so concerned about so many things. Or if I don't fill in my income tax form, what will be the consequences? If I don't work and earn enough money, what will be the consequences? What will be the consequences if I don't do this? We're too concerned about all these things. Bhagavan said, you need not be concerned about these things at all. Whatever is to happen is going to happen. Whatever is not going to happen is not going to happen. So why should you worry yourself about these things? Take the burden off your head, put it on the train, travel happily. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy but why it seems difficult for all of us is because we still have that desire and attachment that we slowly have to learn how to let go of these things, learn how to be unconcerned, learn indifference. This is what Vairagya is all about. Freedom from passion, freedom from desire, freedom from concern with anything.
No, I don't feel
But
that.
let's be brutally honest. Now today we're all here, but say some of us will be gone next year, some will be gone in 10 years, some of us after 20, 30 years, none of us will be here. So what does it all matter? Why we concern ourselves so much about this little life, but we know is one day going to come to an end. Sorry?
I don't really want to have to go through all this all over again.
Well, then let go now. You're going to be forced to let go at the end of a bodily life, aren't you? Learn to let go during your life, and then you won't have to come back again.
Yeah,
Sorry,
well, I mean, that's I try really.
well, we're all trying our best. So just keep on trying.
Thank you, Mike.
Right. But even about coming again, even that we shouldn't be concerned about.
No,
Our concern, oh, I mustn't come again, is itself another attachment. If I'm destined to come another 100 times, let me come another 100 times. What's it matter? It's no concern of mine.
Well,
If that is your attitude, moksha is there, here and now.
Thanks.
Gosh.
Yes.
Now the trouble I have is it's easy. See, when you have negative things in your life,
Yes.
you worry about these. You can't escape. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the biggest problem I have. Although I'm very much into what you were saying. So how do you do in that case? You can't just accept. You have to keep trying to improve yourself.
Well, worries are there. If we accepted whatever happened as the sweet will of Bhagavan, we need not worry about anything. It's because of our unwillingness.
From
Sorry?
that point of view, but
Yes.
if you have real negative habits, they nag you. You
Yes,
can't
yes.
although you know you can surrender to God and He's looking after
Right.
you. My life is full of blessings. It's a strange thing.
Yes,
In spite of all these things, there's nothing but grace in my life.
yes.
But I can't escape from these negative things, which are really very bad.
Right, right. We all suffer from these sort of problems in one form or another, but what is the root of all these things? To whom are these negative thoughts, negative attitudes, negative feelings? It is all for ourselves as this ego. None of these negative feelings we have in sleep, for example. So these are something other than ourselves. We cannot separate ourselves from what we actually are, but we can separate ourselves from all things that come and go. So I'm not saying it's easy to do so, but by patient and perseverant practice of what Bhagavan has taught us, slowly, slowly, these things will drop off. Because the more we rise as ego, the stronger our desires, our attachments, our fears, our concerns, our negativity, our likes, dislikes, all these things will be stronger. The more we rise with enthusiasm, the more we are willing to yield ourselves to Bhagavan, leave everything in his hands. Something is worrying us, okay, leave that worry to Bhagavan. He knows how to take care of this best of all. It's by changing our attitude, but changing our attitude is not always very easy. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but sadhana is not that is what we are seeking to achieve, is that supreme state of Saćķidananda. So we shouldn't think it's going to be an easy thing. We have to be ready ultimately to let go of everything. So we can't let go of everything all at once, but slowly, 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 we can begin by letting go of it. We can weaken our attachments, our desires, our concerns about these things. We can cultivate that attitude of thy will be done. That is, Bhagavan says in Arunachal Patikam, Ninishtam Enishtam, Imbadaku. That is, your wish is my wish. That is happiness for me. So the more we yield ourselves to Bhagavan,
Michael, it's breaking.
Oh, sorry. I'll repeat that. The more we yield ourselves to Bhagavan, the more we leave all our cares, our concerns, our worries, leave them to him. He will take care of all these things. Bhagavan says, however much burden we place on God, he will bear all of it. So we have to be willing to place our burden on him. Let him take care of these things.
Yeah, okay. Can I quote
Yes.
There is a scholar in Bombay,
Yes.
called Valchikar.
Yes.
Same similar philosophy, that you are actually non-entity in a way, because he's controlling everything, and just let it be, just let it happen.
Yes.
Now the thing is, as I said, now the habits I have are really bad. From the childhood, I have been very spoiled.
Yes.
My mother died when I was young.
Yes.
And I'm mentally very outgoing. I can't bear to stay at home. I live alone.
Yes.
And then on top of that, I've got some negative habits which are nagging me. Which could be, I'm very much consider myself very spiritual.
Yes.
But Of that, the negative habits I have,
Yes.
they are not very worthy habits, and so that's why you see I can't help sort of.
Yes, yes. We can't let go of all these things all at once, but little by little. The more we trust Bhagavan, the more we trust that he is taking care of all these things, but the easier it will be for us to let go.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. I mean, it's these are things that we have to work hard at these things. We have to work hard at we all have attachments, desires, concerns, all these things. To let go of these things is not an easy task, but by slowly learning to trust in Bhagavan, learning to be unconcerned about all these things. What's it matter ultimately? What does anything in this world matter? Because all of us who are now in this world, a few years hence, we're all going to be gone, and some other people will be there with their different worries and concerns and everything. So we have to see all these things in proportion.
For the rest of your sort of existence.
Yes, yes. But we don't know how much longer we're going to be here, but we can use the time we have remaining to learn, to continue our practice of learning to be indifferent to all these things. Learn, what does anything really matter? And if we trust it that there's a power of supreme goodness, which we call Bhagavan, that is shaping this whole world, all that to us seems good and all that to us seems bad is all happening by the presence of a supremely good power. So it has our best interest at heart. In fact, Bhagavan is more concerned about us than we are about ourselves, because we don't even know what we are. So the things which we think are good for us may not be good for us. The things which we think are bad for us may not be bad for us. So we have a distorted judgment, whereas he thinks he's everything in proportion. So whatever he gives us is for our good. So surrender is a beautiful path. The more we can let go, the easier it will be for us. But that willingness to let go not only of material things, let go of the concerns, the desires, the attachments, all these things, that's what we have to let go of. It has to be an inward surrender. Outward surrender is easy. You can change the color of your cloth, you can change your name, you can call yourself Swami Sava Visananda, and you can go off and live in a cave in the Himalayas. But still you're taking yourself with you, aren't you? So the problems are not in their outward life. The problems are within us. So Bhagavan always emphasized renunciation is absolutely important, absolutely necessary. But the renunciation has to be inward renunciation. Mere outward renunciation is of no... there are people who may be wearing the kashayam, but they're still got desires and attachments. Whereas there are some people who may be living an outwardly worldly life, but inwardly be at peace and be free of attachment. So Bhagavan always gives emphasis to the inward. What is inside is what is important. So all our desires and attachments, they're inside. So we've got to deal with them within ourselves. We've got to let go of all these things. The more we try to do so, the clearer the way will become. So we just have to start moving in the right direction. And it is said, if you take one step towards God, he takes 10 steps towards you. So our steps may be very, very little, but let us make those few small steps towards him. Okay. Leave the rest to him.
Hello, Michael.
Hello.
I'm really struggling with the question of
I mean, I'm trying to understand what action is authentic and what's basically action that has arisen out of desire, and how I can separate the two. I see that everything, all your thoughts, everything is basically appearing out of nowhere, out of this empty space. And I can associate myself with what's happening and own it and say it was me that decided that thing, or came up with that thought, or committed that action. But how do I differentiate between action that is coming out of desire as opposed to action that was destined?
You need not differentiate. And we cannot differentiate because these things are so enmeshed. If you're given if you have two strands of wool and they're bundled together into a big knot, to unravel it is very difficult because you can't tell which thread belongs to which piece of string or which piece of wool. It's like that. Our desires, the actions driven by our desires and the actions driven by our destiny are so intermeshed, we cannot distinguish, and we need not. It doesn't matter. What we have to be concerned about is but not the actions that are caused by the desires, but desires that are causing the actions. If we take care of our desires, everything else will take care of itself. So it's our likes, our dislikes, our desires, our attachments, our hopes, our fears, all these things. This is what we have to be concerned about. And how to get rid of these things? To a certain extent, we can get rid of them by discrimination. We're attached to certain things. But do these things really matter? Will not these things take care of themselves? Slowly, by discrimination, we can reflect on these things, and that will help us to some extent. But the most, and like I was saying to the other friend we were just talking with, we have to have that trust in God, trust in Bhagavan. That also helps a lot. So there's so many ways we can use our mind to change our attitude to make it easier to let go. But ultimately, the most effective way and the only way ultimately to let go of everything is to whom are all these desires and attachments? To whom are all these likes and dislikes? Who feels this like and I like this, I dislike that, I want this, I don't want that. Who is this? Who is that I? It is ego. And this ego, we know, Bhagavan has revealed to us the nature of this ego. This ego rises by attending to things other than itself. It will subside if it attends to itself. So the more we try to turn our attention within to see who am I? Who am I who has all these desires and attachments, these hopes and these fears? The more we turn our attention back towards ourselves, the more the ego will subside. And when it subsides, all its desires and attachments will subside with it. This ego subsides every night when we go to sleep. In sleep, have you been troubled by any desire, attachment, thought, fear, negative qualities? No, none of these things trouble us in sleep because the root of them all has disappeared there. The root of them all is ego. Ego is nothing but this false awareness, but rises that I am this body, I am Michael. That is ego. Let go of all these adjuncts. Just attend to the I alone. It'll merge back into its source, and what remains is pure awareness. This is the simple and straightforward path taught by Bhagavan. Sorry, I didn't catch that. It got frozen.
Just have a follow-up question. So once I've disassociated myself with all that is being experienced and that arises within my consciousness,
yes,
you're saying that whole experience will disappear and the experiencer will also subside.
Yes,
How
yes.
will I know that?
How do you know? Sorry?
How will I know that? So once I disassociate myself with all experience and all phenomena that's occurring within my consciousness,
yes,
saying that hide and disappear.
Yeah.
And when that phenomena appears of experience, the experiencer itself would also then disappear.
Yes.
When there is no experiencer or experience, how will I then know that this is the authentic self?
You will have no doubt about it, because when the experiencer is also the one who has doubts. So when the experiencer disappears, the doubter will disappear. What then remains is pure awareness. And that pure awareness is always clearly aware of itself as it is, without any doubt. So what we have to...
So, I mean, for example, I recognize thoughts and they arise within my consciousness, and that's how I recognize them.
Yes.
But how will I recognize this authentic self, the true self, if there is absence of everything?
You need not worry about that. All you need to... Now you're aware of I. You're now aware I am. You're asking these questions. How do I do this? Who is that I? Attend to that I. That I is ego. That's not the pure awareness. It's the pure awareness mixed with adjuncts. Doesn't matter. Attend to that I. The more you attend to that I, the more that I will subside. And when that I subsides completely, what remains is pure awareness. There will be no doubt in that state. The more you subside, the greater the clarity will be. This is a part of investigation. When you're on an investigation, the way reveals itself. And anything, if we investigate, we don't know. We start an investigation because we don't know what the conclusion is going to be. But as we progress with the investigation, the way forward becomes more and more clear. We may begin thinking we have to go in this direction, but when we go in this direction, more becomes clear, and we know we have to shift our direction. We have to shift our direction. It's the same on the spiritual path. This is a part of investigation. The more we attend to ourselves, the clearer the way to attend to ourselves will become. So everything will be revealed as we progress. So all we have to do, start on the path. Everything else will become clear.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah. Right.
Process.
Sorry?
This question of, it's a progressive question. So
Yes.
As one becomes more pure,
Yes.
one is less inclined to judgment.
Yes.
In other words, it matter more frequently. In other words, if one is really dense,
Yes.
everything matters.
Yes.
And we battle with everything. And as you progress, as you become, and I'm putting this in quotes, pure,
Yeah.
you let more things go.
Yes. Yes.
And there is no way that you can judge your state of being. In other words, there's no way you can judge, self-judge. In other words, where am I? In other words, at what state of progress am I?
Yes. Yes.
It's just a question of tolerance and a question of waiting
Yes.
for development.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
there's not much you can do about it.
Well, I wouldn't quite say that. I wouldn't quite say that. That is, when you talk about purity, purity is our natural condition. That is our real nature is pure awareness. So impurity is something that is unnatural. What is the impurity when we talk about chitta-suddhi, the purity of mind? And what is the impurity of mind that we need to be free of? The impurity is all our desires, attachments, likes, dislikes, and so on. So we cannot give up all these things without some willingness on our part, without some effort on our part. So we have to work. Surrender, though surrender means letting go, we have to work at it. That may sound, it's not that we have to do something to let go, but we have to make that effort. We have to cultivate that attitude of surrender, of letting go. We have to be very vigilant about all the likes, dislikes, and so on that are arising in our mind. To whom are all these likes and dislikes? Who wants this? Who is concerned about this? Who dislikes this? So we have to be constantly turning our attention back towards ourselves. So there is something we can do, but what we can do is not actually a doing. It's just a state of being, because attending to other things is a doing, because it involves a movement of our attention away from ourselves back towards other things. So that's a mental activity. But turning our attention back towards ourselves is not a mental activity. It's a subsidence of all mental activity, a cessation of mental activity. So there is something that we can do, but what we can do is not a doing. It's a letting go. It's a cessation.
There's an element of understanding here, is there not? Or acknowledging what is. In other words, I mean, the mind still comes into play here.
Yes, but we need understanding in order to follow this path, because if we don't understand, we're not going to follow the path correctly. So we need understanding. So the mind has a role to play here. But the more we understand things correctly, the more we will understand the need, the absence of any need for us to concern ourselves with anything. The less we are concerned with things, the more we will be willing to let go. Why we desire things, why we're attached to them, it's because of our concern. Because we think our happiness depends on these things. But the more we understand that the happiness we are seeking is already within us, it's not to be gained from anything. Just like happiness is not to be gained from anything external, and nothing external can take our happiness away from us. So we've got to find that happiness within ourselves. So the more we seek happiness within ourselves, the less concerned we will be about anything else.
So it's a question really of asking and remembering to ask the right questions. You know, who's upset here?
Yes, exactly. We've constantly got to bear in mind all these problems that we face. These problems are for whom? For me. So who is this me? Who am I? We've got to investigate just this I. The more we attend to other things, Sadhuam says something very nice in Sri Ramana. He says, attention itself is attachment. When we're attached to something, we're much concerned about it, we think about it, we attend to it. So if we want to become attached to ourselves, to our real nature, we've got to attend to our real nature. The more we attend to ourselves, the less we attend to anything else. Sorry, was that breaking up? Did you hear what I was saying? No. Okay. Sorry, it seems the internet connection isn't very stable at the moment. Shall I try again? Sorry?
Try again. Can you repeat that last section? Because
okay. I just got to remember what I was saying. Sorry, my thread of thought, I got lost there. What was the last thing you heard me saying? Do you remember?
I think Geeta remembers.
attention is attachment.
Attention is
Oh yes, attention is attachment. Yes, but the more we attend to something, the more we get attached to that thing, and we attend to things because we're attached to them, because we're concerned about them. So if you've got a worry in your life, the more you think about that worry, the bigger the worry becomes. The more you turn your attention away from that worry and think about other things, that worry slowly slips away into the background. So whatever we attend to, we become attached to that thing. So if we attend only to ourselves means not to ourselves as a person, to the awareness but to the perceiver, the one who is aware of all these things, the experiencer. The more we attend to the experiencer, the more our concern with, our attachment to anything else will slip off. So it's all ultimately a matter of attention. What do we attend to? Do we attend to all these things all these phenomena, the objects of the world, or the events in the world, or what's happening with all our mental activity? Do we attend to all these things, or do we attend to ourselves? The more we attend to ourselves, the more our attachment to other things will drop off.
So it's a question of remembering, really, that
To attend to ourselves.
We're not this body. Really.
Yes.
And so it's a question, really, of not even understanding, but being aware, perpetually,
Yes.
that I am not this.
Yes, but merely being aware, but we have an understanding, but we are not this body. But that understanding it's necessary to understand that, but it's not sufficient. We have to, having understood that we're not this body or mind, we have to try to find out what we actually are. How do we find out what we actually are? By attending to ourselves, by looking at ourselves very keenly with our inner eye. Inner eye means our attention.
Basically, what you're saying, to experience what we are.
Yes, it has to. We have to be actually aware of ourselves as we actually are.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave it at this point because I've come to a dead end.
Right. That's our goal. Our goal is come to a dead end. The dead end of the ego.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, thank you.
I'm back for more.
Right.
I just wanted to recap what you said earlier. Self-attentiveness, self-investigation.
Yes.
Is the same as self-surrender.
Yes. Because for a simple reason, this is the basic principle, the most important principle of Bhagavan's teachings. We rise as ego by attending to things other than ourselves. In other words, when we look away from ourselves, we rise as ego. And by looking away from ourselves, we are sustaining ego. But when we look back at ourselves to see who am I, this ego dissolves and disappears, because it doesn't actually. Bhagavan describes it as a formless phantom, uruvatra-paya-hande, this formless phantom ego. So it seems to exist only when we're looking elsewhere. If we look at it very carefully, it's not to be seen. If we mistake a rope to be a snake, it will continue seeming to be a snake until we look at it carefully enough. When we look at it carefully enough, oh, it's just a rope. Then the wrong idea that it was a snake disappears forever. Likewise, ego is nothing but a wrong idea. This wrong idea, I am this person. I am Michael. So that is ego. But look, if we look at ourselves, we will see but we are not what we seem to be, the ego. We are just that pure awareness which underlies the ego. Just like if you look very carefully at the illusory snake, you see it's just a rope. So this is the as I say, it's the most fundamental principle of Bhagavan's teachings. Look at other things, you rise and sustain the ego. You feed the ego by looking at other things. Look at yourself, ego disappears. That's what Bhagavan teaches us in verse 25 of Ulladu. There he reveals the nature of the ego. He describes the ego as Uruvatrapeya, this formless phantom ego. And he explains how it comes into existence, how it stands, how it feeds itself and flourishes, and how to get rid of it. Everything is revealed in that one verse by Bhagavan. He says, Urupatri-undam, grasping form, it rises. Urupatri-nikkum, grasping form, it stands. Urupatri-undu-mika-ongam, grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes. Uruvittu urupatram, leaving one form, it grasps another form. Tedinal otum pidicum, if sought, it takes flight. What he means by grasping form, the ego itself is formless. It has no form of its own. What he means by form is phenomena. By attending to any phenomena, we rise as ego. By attending to phenomena, we sustain the ego, we feed the ego, make ego flourish. Okay, I'll say again. But what Bhagavan means by urupatri, grasping form means in this context, means any phenomena, whether physical phenomena, mental phenomena of any kind whatsoever. In other words, anything other than ourself is a form. So grasping form means attending to or being aware of anything other than ourselves. So as long as we're looking at other things, we are nourishing and sustaining this ego. But when instead of looking at other things, if we look at ourselves, this ego, because ego is a formless phantom, we can't actually find it. When we look within, there's no such thing. What then remains is pure awareness. So if you understand this one principle, this is the cornerstone of Bhagavan's teaching. This is what is so unique about Bhagavan's teaching. As far as I'm aware, this hasn't been revealed so clearly in any of the ancient texts. But Bhagavan explained it very clearly and simply. Attend to other things, you nourish the ego. Attend to yourself, and ego dissolves and disappears. It takes flight. If we understand that, we've
really
understood
easy.
everything.
How do we then give proper attention to ourselves so that we can see that this formless phantom disappears?
That we have to find out by practice. Can you explain to me how to ride a bicycle? If you want to teach me how to ride a bicycle, you have to give me a bicycle and tell me to get on it and wobble and fall off a few times. Sooner or later, I'll get the hang of it. There's very little that can be said to just tell someone how to ride a bicycle. But if you start trying to ride a bicycle, anyone can learn, but only by practice. In exactly the same way, how to investigate ourselves, how to attend to ourselves, we can learn only by trying. Sorry, I think, have you lost me again?
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, should I repeat that?
We did lose you.
So I say, just like learning to ride a bicycle. Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. To learn to ride a bicycle, there's only one way. You have to try to ride a bicycle. You have to get on the bicycle, fall, wobble. Sooner or later, you learn how to balance properly on the bicycle. in exactly the same way, with this path of self-investigation, we can learn how to investigate ourselves, how to attend to ourselves, only by trying to do so. At first, our self-attentiveness won't be very perfect, but it doesn't matter. But by trying, slowly, we refine our self-attentiveness. Our focus on ourselves becomes sharper and sharper. Did you hear that?
Okay. We did hear that, yes.
Okay, right.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much, then, Michael.
Okay, right. That is the most important principle of Bhagavan's teachings. If we understand that one thing, everything else becomes clear. Why is the only effective way to surrender ourselves, to investigate ourselves? Because the self that we have to surrender is ego. So long as ego is attending to anything other than itself, it's nourishing itself and flourishing. When ego attends to itself, it subsides and disappears. So that's why Bhagavan says in that first sentence of the 13th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, being firmly established as oneself, not giving even the slightest room to the rising of any thought other than self-attentiveness, is giving oneself to God. In other words, the only effective way to surrender ourselves entirely is self-investigation. By attending to ourselves, we are surrendering ourselves. The only effective way to kill the illusory snake is to look at it very carefully and see that it's just a rope. If we try beating that illusory snake, it's not going to die. The only way it will die is if you look at it and see what it actually is. Likewise, by any amount of yoga, tantra, mantra, all these things, we cannot kill this ego. Only way to kill it is to look at it and see that it doesn't actually exist.
We've lost you for a minute, Michael.
Yes, I've got a message here, but your network bandwidth is low. I have a feeling the wireless signal there is fairly weak.
I think you were saying that the purpose of mantra, tantra.
Oh yeah, I said. So yes. I was saying we cannot, just like we cannot kill that illusory snake by beating it with a stick. We cannot kill this ego by any amount of mantra, tantra, yoga, pranayama, meditation, any of these things. So long as we're looking at anything else, we are nourishing the ego. When we look at ourselves, ego dissolves and disappears. This is a unique, such a precious clue Bhagavan has given us. This is the key to the whole of spirituality. This is the key to liberation that Bhagavan has given us. The key to the kingdom of God, if you like to call it that. The key to the gates of moksha. Hello.
What part has developing one's powers of concentration in this?
Concentration. What?
Concentration on.
To concentrate on anything other than ourselves. What makes us concentrate on something? Supposing there's you're very interested in achieving some goal. and that goal requires you to study, say, something. Because of your eagerness to achieve that goal, you concentrate on your studies in order to achieve that goal. So it's desire that drives our concentration on anything other than ourselves. Suppose there's a very interesting film. Because it's a very interesting film, your interest in the film makes you concentrate on that film. You don't notice the fact your seat is uncomfortable or anything, because the film is such a gripping film. Or it could be an exciting novel you're reading or something, whatever it is. We concentrate on so many things according to what it catches our interest. But the concentration that we need is not concentration on anything other than ourselves, it's concentration on ourselves. In other words, focusing our attention on ourselves. We will do so to the extent that we are interested in ourselves, interested in knowing what we actually are. So where the interest is there, the concentration will automatically follow. So what we have to do is to cultivate that passionate interest to know, what actually am I? All this time I've been fooling myself, mistaking myself to be Barry or Michael or whoever. But how long are we going to continue fooling ourselves like this and suffering as a consequence? So what actually am I? According to Bhagavan, I'm infinite happiness, pure awareness. Isn't it worth concentrating on that, trying to find out what I am? So we have to be passionately interested in this. The passionate interest the concentration automatically follows the interest.
So, in other words, we don't have to develop our powers of concentration.
You have to develop your interest, develop your curiosity to know what you are. Then the concentration will follow automatically.
Yeah. Thanks.
Right. Sorry, again, the signal has... Sorry, I didn't hear. The signal had gone weak there.
It's an ongoing thing. This need to perpetually and always be aware of who you are.
Yes.
In other words, you don't set aside time and, all right, for half an hour, I'll try and remember. It is a perpetual thing.
Yes.
You have a punch up with
Yes.
somebody.
Exactly.
You stop and say, hey, hang on a second.
Yes, and that again is what I was just saying to Barry. If you're really interested in something, that thing will be in your constantly coming to your mind. An analogy I often give: supposing a very dear friend of yours has had an accident and is critically ill in hospital. You may have so many other things to do during the course of your day. You may have to go to work, you may have to go and do shopping, you may have to pay the bills, do this, do that. But in the back of your mind, there'll be constantly the thought of your friend will be there, won't it?
Yes.
Because your friend is, so because of your attachment to your friend, your concern for your friend, your love for your friend, their thought will be there constantly in the back of your mind. In the same way, if we are so passionately interested to know what we are, this self-attentiveness will be going on in the background in the midst of all other activities.
Right.
So the key is interest. That's why Bhagavan used to say, Bhakti is the mother of jnana. Bhakti means love. Jnana means awareness. So the awareness means awareness of ourself, the self-awareness. So the awareness of ourself as we really are follows our bhakti, our interest to know what we are.
Right. So basically, it's not going to happen, boom, all at once. It's just
well, ultimately, it will happen, boom. But the preparation for that is a long and gradual process.
A noise in the background.
Yes, yes, yes. When you look at the snake, all of a sudden you see it's a rope. It doesn't gradually reveal itself as a rope. One moment you think it's a snake, next moment you see clearly, oh, it's only a rope. So it happens, boom, that revelation that it's a rope.
When you see it out, you're there.
Yeah.
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 Thank you, Michael.
But that's a metaphorical boom. It won't actually go boom. There'll be no one there to hear the boom.
You remember that rope and the offended? You remember that rope and the offended?
Is there anybody else who has a quick question? Absolutely. Do you want to?
Can I just ask a quick question following on from that idea of a boom?
Yes.
See your real self, but that doesn't mean that ego won't be coming up and down and up and down after that realizing what you are.
That is the end of ego. But so long as you mistake the rope to be a snake, you constantly see it as a snake. The moment you see it as a rope, you never again mistake it to be a snake. If you really see that it's a rope, you can never again mistake it. So when we once know what we actually are, that is the end of the story.
So you're talking about complete liberation, aren't you, rather than self-realization?
Sorry?
See, are you talking about sort of complete liberation rather than just, well, I'm saying just, but self-realization?
Well, self-realization is just a term. So what is called self-realization means being aware of yourself as you actually are. When you know what you actually are, you will never again mistake yourself to be the person that till now you seem to be.
Okay.
So it's a small change of attitude, but that small change of outlook. We see things differently. What we previously saw as all this multiplicity, we'll suddenly see as the one pure awareness.
But from that space of perception, of realizing, there still is ego coming up and going down.
No.
And
In whose? No.
Well, I mean, because the mind, because it's been constructed, if you like, over time, it will still make a noise, but you won't identify with it.
No. The ego is nothing but the false awareness. I am this body. I am this person. When you become aware of yourself as you actually are, you can never mistake yourself to be anything else.
But I'm not saying necessarily whether you mistake yourself for it, but it will still, in other words, within the spaciousness of,
how can you
sorry, just because this is quite an important issue for me, because
yes,
I think I have got a level of, I think, well, you know, I have had an awakening, and yet there is a constant noise coming from within, which sometimes I identify with, sometimes I don't. But I think I've kind of got very hung up about feeling I must be doing something wrong because it's still there. But it seems that what you're saying is that yes, I have done something wrong because it's still there. Whereas I just took that to be, you know, that it's complete liberation was something very, very rare, whereas self-realization is something relatively easy, you know, or within.
Well, it depends what you mean by self-realization, but anything that comes and goes is not the reality. What is real is ever there.
No,
so
it doesn't come and go, but it's what I'm saying. Similarly, my ego has not gone. So it is there, it's chatting away.
Yes.
Everybody just as everybody else
But,
is chatting.
but you cannot be,
Yeah,
you
so-
cannot be aware, you cannot see the snake and the rope at the same time. Either you see it as a snake or you see it as a rope. As soon as you see this, that it's just a rope, you can never again see it as a snake. So the snake appears because we haven't seen what it actually is, which is just a rope. When we see what it actually is, but there never was a snake there. It's not a matter of a snake will come and go. The snake was never there in the first place. So ego is a false awareness of ourselves. Once we're aware of ourselves as we actually are, there never was any ego. It's no question of ego coming and going. Coming and going exists only in the view of ego. So long as we mistake ourselves to be, so long as we experience ourselves as ego, there seems to be coming and going. When we experience ourselves as we actually are, we will know there never was any coming and going. There never was any ego.
I don't want to take time to know you're about to finish. But the point is the rope still is there. So the rope still remains. It doesn't.
The road is there only for the ego.
But it doesn't disappear. Is what I'm saying is like I mean quite a particular way now, not in a kind of general way. After understanding, recognizing one's awareness as pure awareness, that doesn't mean that thoughts don't continue to arise. As this gentleman said, faults in oneself, and you know, I don't know what the Indian word is for it, Maya.
Yeah.
You know, can arise from a place of recognizing oneself to be pure awareness, can they not? Because I feel like I'm stuck in that place.
Okay, what do you mean? What do you mean by pure awareness? Pure awareness is awareness that is not aware of anything other than itself. So in pure awareness, nothing can ever come and go. So long as there's coming and going.
I'm not saying it comes and goes. I'm saying thoughts
Thoughts come and go only in the view of ego.
Right. So
in sleep, there's no ego, therefore there are no thoughts. In waking dream, there's ego, therefore there are thoughts.
Well, I don't get deep sleep. I only have dreaming sleep, and I'm aware during my sleep, and I have been for the last 30 years. So I'm sort of the opposite of Marion. I get a lot of sleep, but I don't get any deep sleep. So I seem to, but my perception is of being like everything, like all of this is mine. Like I own everybody.
Yeah.
Including these thoughts that come up. And but my sense is not particularly that's, I mean, I know it's more attached to this body than it is to somebody else's, but I have an encompassing awareness, but it certainly hasn't resulted in everything stopping. And I think for a long time I felt that there was something wrong, that it should somehow stop. Whereas now I'm kind of
it's not exactly something wrong. It's that the clarity is not yet sufficient. When the perfect clarity is there, everything else will be swallowed by it.
There won't be thoughts. There won't be any.
There won't be thoughts. There won't be a thinker. There won't be anyone to be aware of thoughts.
So I would. I always thought of that as liberation. So I thought of the first as self-realization, but then liberation was something almost unattainable.
No.
I mean, without putting you on the spot, are you saying that for yourself that thoughts don't arise or you consider yourself on the path?
I am in the same boat as you or anyone else. I don't claim anything for myself, but but the more we look within, the more all these things, the significance of all these phenomena drops off. It loses its hold on us. But I'm not. But we're still on the path. We haven't yet reached our goal. The fact that we're here and still discussing this subject, we haven't yet reached our goal. But by continuing to follow this path, the more we follow this path, the greater clarity we get. And the greater our clarity, the more other things drop off, the less we cling to anything. And eventually, we will let go of not only of all our attachments, but also of the one who is attached, in other words, ego. Only when we are completely free of ego, when we see that there never was any such thing as ego, that is the ultimate goal we are seeking. Call it liberation or self-realization, the name doesn't matter. So long as we are aware of multiplicity, we are ego. So long as we're aware of thoughts, thoughts appear only in the view of ego, not in the view of pure awareness.
To go to just, I know I'm aware we're at the end, but to go back to what you were talking about, Bhagavan, talking about when you bring the attention back to self, ego disappears. I take that to mean in the moment. That, in other words, that is the practice of coming back to self.
Well, no, in practice. In practice, so far, we haven't yet attended, that is, just to use an analogy, now our attention is facing outwards towards phenomena, towards the world. We are trying to turn our attention 180 degrees away from what is perceived, back towards the perceiver. Yeah. But in practice, what we are doing, we're not turning the full 180 degrees. We may be turning 160 degrees, 170 degrees, but then we turn back again. So we are never completely attending to ourselves. We're never attending to ourself alone, so far. Ultimately, we'll reach a point where we turn that full 180 degrees. When we turn that full 180 degrees, we will not be aware of anything else. We'll be aware of ourself alone. That is the state of pure awareness. When we experience that state, that is the end of ego once and for all. That is what you call liberation. That's the ultimate state we are seeking.
I would like to suggest that there is a stage that is pretty good, which is that you can be in a state of awareness and see everything, including the ego, and it not be a problem, although sometimes it may be a problem. But the sense of self is not lost. It
may be.
But maybe many people here have that realization, and actually that's a pretty good.
Yeah, it is pretty good. This is all part of the path. This is not the goal. What we are seeking is not something pretty good. What we are seeking is we are seeking infinite happiness, pure awareness. That is not something pretty good. That's something absolutely perfect. So let us not be satisfied with what is pretty good.
I'm sort of being, so yeah, okay. Well, I don't want to take any more time, but I'm sure.
Yeah.
I might.
Thank you. There's a nice story Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to tell. Go deeper within. That is a woodcutter. Was a very poor woodcutter. Every day he went to the edge of a forest to collect wood, and he would collect just enough firewood to go to the market, sell the firewood, and he'd have just enough money to feed himself and his family. One day when he went to the edge of the wood and he was collecting firewood as usual, a sadhu came past, and the sadhu asked him what he's doing, and he explained, and then the sadhu said, go deeper within, meaning go deeper within the forest. So the next day he went a little further into the forest and he found some very, very nice trees there. So he cut down one of the trees, he took it back to the market. For the first day he actually made a profit. That is, he was able to feed his family and he had 1 or 2 rupees left over. So every day he was going in, slowly he was accumulating a profit. After a few months, the sadhu came that way and asked him what he was doing. When he said, oh Swami, I'm very grateful because you gave me this good advice to go within. I'm now making a profit every day, and I'm slowly building up some savings. The sadhu said, go deeper within. And so this happened successively. First he found some oak trees, and then he found some mahogany, then he found some sandalwood, the most precious wood of all. But again, the sadhu came and said, go deeper within. So every time he was satisfied with what he found, the sadhu said, go deeper within. So eventually he found a silver mine, eventually he found a diamond mine. So also, on the spiritual path, we should never be satisfied within any intermediate goal. We should always go deeper within until there's no place deeper to go. Until we attain that eternal, infinite satisfaction, infinite happiness. So let us not be satisfied with, it was pretty good when the sadhu went in and was able to find some trees that he could sell for a profit. It was even better when he found oak trees, even better when he found mahogany, even better when he found sandalwood. But we shouldn't be satisfied with any of these things. However pretty good it may be, it's not good enough. So go deeper within.
That's what we think, but that's not necessarily how it appeared. That's what we think. I mean, things are going on, but they're not even aware of it.
But are we really trying to attain to become Bhagavan?
Yes.
Yeah.
We definitely are. That seems to be the yes. Because that's what we really asked. That's what we're trying to.
I didn't hear most of that, but I think someone was asking whether we really have to become Bhagavan.
No, I think what you're saying is that do we really want to become? Is that we're striving to become Bhagavans? And I just said yes.
I say no. We cannot become Bhagavan. We are already Bhagavan. We just have to see ourselves as Bhagavan.
I agree.
Okay.
Bhagavan said, you are already that.
Marianne, is it okay?